The U.S., rather than local courts in Afghanistan, will have jurisdiction over its troops, which will stay in the country past next year. This is according to a draft security deal that could still see change after the Afghan Assembly meets Thursday. For more on this, I'm joined by Michael Preisner, an Iraq War veteran and now an anti-war activist. So, based on your U.S. military experience, how capable do you think the military is of policing troops without the involvement of local courts, something that it plans to do in Afghanistan?
Well, there's no real plan to police troops and make sure that crimes aren't committed in Afghanistan, because that's really been the status quo for the war there and the war in Iraq. And so it's not to say that, oh, because we won't let Afghan courts try and punish soldiers for committing actual crimes in this country, but no one's going to be held accountable at all. And there's multiple cases through the Iraq War that we can point to, and even the Afghanistan War, largely released in these WikiLeaks documents, where actual crimes against civilians go completely unpunished. But, there's a big deal behind this security pact. Is that, we were told, President Obama gave a speech in December of 2009 at West Point where he said, we want to end this war. We know the American people want to end this war. And so all we're going to do is just triple the size of the war for a little while. And then we're going to make sure that all of those soldiers come home. And we were all promised, soldiers and their families were promised this 2014 withdrawal deadline. And then as that deadline approached, we saw the Obama administration go to Afghanistan, essentially trying everything they can to sign an agreement to extend troops in that country until at least 2024.
More than 2,000 Afghan leaders will meet Thursday to discuss the draft security deal. Do you think there could be changes to it then?
There may be minor changes, but of course the big things that the U.S. is holding on to is the ability to have U.S. military bases in the country with the ability to raid Afghan villages, carry out operations where so-called their lives are in danger, so essentially anywhere they want to in the country, and of course complete immunity from any crimes that are committed by any U.S. troops or by the U.S. military. And this alone highlights the real colonial nature of the relationship between the United States and the Afghan government, where they won't agree to any pact that doesn't include immunity for criminal acts that are committed. And this is why they withdrew from Iraq, because they refused to give up on this one point of immunity. And this actually has some historical significance. This is what's known as extraterritoriality, which is a fundamental, foundational feature of colonialism, where the indigenous, colonized people have no right or authority whatsoever to hold accountable those who are occupying them.
Now, do you think the U.S. troops could be in the country for another 10 years?
That's, of course, what the United States government wants. They want troops, military bases in the country permanently, as long as possible. And the things that were fed by the administration, by the U.S. government, by the Pentagon, is that we just want to stay in Afghanistan just because we want to provide security for the Afghan people, and just because we've got to continue fighting al-Qaeda, otherwise there's going to be another terrorist attack on the United States. Both of those reasons are completely false and have no basis in reality whatsoever. The only reason that the U.S. wants to maintain a permanent military presence in the region is to maintain a geostrategic military presence, one where they can exert its influence through brute force and intimidation over the entire region, and of course to continue having leverage over whatever new Afghan government takes its place.
How do you think the Taliban will react?
The White House spokesperson just said, and this is a line coming from the Obama administration, that regardless of what happens with troops staying and bases staying, that the war is going to end and that combat is going to be over by 2014. So that promise is going to be kept. But the war and the combat is not going to be over for those U.S. soldiers who remain on those bases, who will be bombarded with attacks, no doubt, on a regular basis. And so we're going to still see U.S. troops dying in that country if this continues. And so all they're going to do is change the language and say, this isn't a combat mission anymore. We ended the war, but soldiers are still going to die and still going to leave their families on these deployments.
All right, Michael Preisner, we have to leave it there. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.